Trade deals are gathering pace in Asia ahead of the August 1st deadline. The Philippines, the latest in the region to secure an agreement with the United States.
President Trump announced a 19% tariff rate, just below the 20% that he had threatened earlier this month. But it is above the 17% rate he initially set in April.
The announcement came after President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. made a visit to the White House this week. As part of the deal, Manila will open its market to Washington, and some U.S. goods like automobiles will have a zero tariff rate.
Now, this is the fifth deal Mr. Trump has announced over the past 3 months as countries scramble to negotiate lower duties before the deadline. For more, let's speak now with Jose Romualdez. He's ambassador of the Philippines to the United States. Ambassador, thank you so much, for joining us on the show today here in Singapore. I have one question on my mind, Ambassador, and many people I know, my friends, colleagues as well, are asking the very same question about why the Philippines didn't get a better deal considering those long-standing ties, both defense and economics. So I said, wait, we're talking to the ambassador on Friday, so here you are. So why doesn't it seem as though you had a good deal despite all those, ties?
Well, actually, the 19% was based on the same percentage that was given to Indonesia. And I think it is also to, what's the other country now? I can't. The only one that has a 10% is Singapore. But there are two other countries with 19%. And President Trump said that I can't lower it lower than what I had already given to them. However, it is clear that we can still renegotiate. It was really announced by President Trump at his Truth Social. And we expect to be able to still be able to discuss this. Our trade the head of our trade team will probably be coming back to Washington, D.C. to see how we can still manage to lower that. The White House just recently announced that, President Trump announced that the lowest he will go is 15% to any country. So we're still hoping that we will be able to bring down our level of tariff to around the same figure.
Well, Ambassador, some economists say that the deal was not balanced. How much was achieving, a balanced outcome, the strategy for the Philippines in this deal? And how much did broader geopolitical security concerns like U.S.-China relations play in how the Philippines approach the negotiations?
Well, I think that the main point here is that President Trump made it clear that the tariffs, he tried to differentiate it from the tariff to whatever the defense relations that we have with the United States. However, we are bringing that in as a matter of fact, because obviously the special relations that we have with the United States on our defense alliance is an important part of this whole equation. However, like I said, it is still not a completely done deal, as pointed out, because we still have time to be able to look into possibilities of bringing it lower. But the more important one is that we will be able to identify some other areas of economic cooperation between the Philippines and the United States.
Yeah, so Ambassador, I understand that you're still trying to renegotiate this deal, but could you also help us clarify some of the details that have come out from the most recent deal, the most recent announcement? Because President Trump has recently said on social media that the Philippines will have no tariffs on American goods, while President Marcos later said that the zero tariffs will only be on certain products. So can you tell us what has the Philippines agreed to give in the U.S. at this point?
Well, we've identified several of these items that we have spelled out during the trade talks. And Ambassador Jameson Greer, this was presented to him. And like I said, the details of this deal has not been completely disclosed, and we are still going to be able to go over it and still go one by one on the deals or on the tariffs that will be given to the United States, if there's any, on certain items, like I said, mostly agricultural products, but this, as mentioned by President Marcos, the automobiles are definitely one item that has already been agreed upon, that we would be importing American cars to the Philippines without any tariff.
Ambassador, so we hear your point about this deal that continues to evolve, but we also know that businesses don't like uncertainty. So can I ask you, are you certain that the evolution is going to be positive, for Filipino businesses and Filipinos alike, both domestically and those who are, I guess, based in the U.S. as well? I mean, I wanna ask you about the comment that's been making the rounds as well. The number doesn't matter. What matters is that it's better or competitive with neighboring countries. Your comments on those particular points?
Well, definitely, we that's precisely why we're gunning for this. But like I said, this particular deal is really more of an announcement made by President Trump, because President Marcos had a very good meeting, as a matter of fact, with him. But we did not really delve too much in the discussion on the trade, or rather on the amount that was going to be given to the Philippines. But like President Marcos said, this is a tariff that's imposed by the United States on all countries. I mean, the number varies, of course. And if you remember, after a lot of trade negotiations that went on with Japan, for instance, now it's down to 15% from the 25%. So we see that there's also still room for that type of negotiations, and that's exactly what we're looking at. And hopefully it'll be like we always say, what is good. A good deal is good for both countries, or the parties agree that it's going to be good for that. Otherwise, it will just go one way. And as President Trump said, the letter is clear. If it's 20%, it's 20%. And if you don't want to make a deal, then it remains at 20%. We went into these negotiations with the right intentions, to be able to find ways and means to be able to make it really equitable for both our countries, no matter what the relationship is on the defense side.
And quick thoughts, Ambassador, about how this may affect your economic growth for the Philippines. I will note that the ADB has cut its forecast for this year and next, not by much, but it's still been cut.
Well, our exports if it's in relation to our trade with the United States, our exports to the United States only comprise 16% of our exports. The 86% is into many other countries, and some of our leaders in our country have already said, like other countries are doing right now, they're looking for other markets where they can export their products, which is what we are doing already right now.
Yeah, and Ambassador, you did mention that trade is just kind of one part of the whole meeting between President Marcos and President Trump. But we know that the Philippines is facing this delicate balance between, strengthening its defense ties with the U.S., but also addressing domestic economic concerns. So to what extent did security cooperation with the U.S. influence the economic terms of this agreement that we've heard so far and the meeting that we saw between the two leaders?
Well, we have a number of agreements, basically like the defense industrial base. The U.S. Congress had just approved that an ammunition manufacturing facility will be established in the Philippines. That is really actually a commercial. It will create jobs, so that there's an economic component in that agreement that we plan to have with the United States, but it also includes the defense. Similar to what we had with Cerberus at the Subic shipyard, where it's now a definitely useful for our defense part of our relationship with the United States, but it's also a commercial entity. So this is the kind of agreements that we're looking at that will combine both defense and economic. But we made it very clear that whatever it is, economic prosperity for the Philippines means economic security, and it'll also mean more resources for us to be able to bump up to modernize our armed forces.
So I just want to follow up on the bit about the zero tariffs on U.S. goods. There are concerns, of course, that it would flood or it could flood the Philippine market and hurt local industries. What would you say to, of course, local businesses who may be concerned about this?
Well, the agriculture part is really where there will be, there are some areas we've already identified that we will not be able to have a free flow or no tariff. So I think that has already been clear, that has been made clear to the trade representative of the United States, and then they understand that completely. So there's absolutely a lot of other items that we feel is also important for us to protect that industry. So again, like I said, it is still too far to say that this is already done, because we are still looking at a lot of things that the details of which we're still in the process of for discussion with the United States.
Yeah, we know that President Trump has taken issue with America's trade deficit. How much does this trade deal help narrow that trade imbalance, and what counts as the biggest win for you in what has been announced so far?
I think the most important part is the reaffirmation of the commitments made by the United States in specifically modernizing our armed forces, which is very important for us now because of the challenges that we face. And the economic part of it, of course, is important. But like I said, 16% of our exports, that's the percentage is not as big as some people may think it is. We're not dependent completely on our exports to the United States. And our products can be exported to other countries as well. So again, our trade secretary has made it clear that we are going to continue to look or find ways and means to be able to come out with a very conclusive and equitable deal with the United States.
Ambassador, I think it's becoming clear that when President Trump talks about trade deals, he doesn't restrict it to trade, a point that's been made by you talking about defense. I want to ask you about what's been happening in terms of, if you like, migrants as well, the immigration issue in the United States. We've been hearing reports of Filipinos, with valid visas being detained by ICE. We also know there is a considerable number of Filipinos in the United States, I beg your pardon, who are undocumented. Well, this wasn't discussed in previous rounds. I mean, I'm wondering, how do you intend to address the issue going forward, and also, I guess, assuage the Filipino community in the United States over what's been happening?
Well, we don't have a very large. We do. The reports are that we have a large number of Filipinos who are staying in the United States illegally, meaning to say they don't have a valid visa. However, the figures that we have right now is about 3,700 are now or rather being processed for deportation. I've had a meeting with the Assistant Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and we have agreed that any Filipino, no matter what the status, meaning to say if they have any criminal record or whatsoever, and they're up for deportation, that we, the Philippines, will take them to our country rather than to a third country. We've made that very clear that whatever it is, whatever the status is, that we will take them back, or they should be deported back to our country. They also told us that there is this offer that was publicly made also, that anyone who wants to self-deport can just simply inform us, and we can inform the DHS, so they won't even know who they are. But we obviously have to give some records to show that they are Filipinos who are prepared to self-deport, and they will be given $1,000 for them to leave the country, and at the same time be given a one-way ticket to the Philippines. So we told them that we will inform the general Filipino community that if there's anyone who'd like to take advantage of this offer, they can do so through us, and we will do it with the DHS, or the Department of Homeland Security.
Understood. Ambassador, so as we, I guess as you and the United States work through the details, do you have a possible timeline? Is there a deadline, for the details to be worked out? I guess the question is, when will we have clarity in terms of the deal that has been, the framework that's been signed anyway? When are the details going to come out?
I think we can safely say that we're hoping that within the next 2 weeks, because remember there is the August 1 deadline that all tariffs should be made by then. But we will see how it goes. Our Secretary Frederick Go, who was in charge of our trade negotiations with the United States, is probably going to be the best person to let us know exactly when we will be able to have a complete and conclusive trade deal with the United States.
Right. So, and finally, where you see the relationship between the U.S. and the Philippines headed, how is it going to look like in the next 3-4 years?
I think, judging from the relationship that, first of all, the personal relationship that President Marcos has with President Trump and vice versa, I think it will be a pretty good relationship, in the sense that since President Trump is known to value personal relationships with heads of state, I think they hit it off very well. So we can see that there is that rapport, and that any problems that we may have, whether big or small, the two leaders can easily call each other. As a matter of fact, I think what I'm told is that there is a plan for them to exchange telephone numbers. So again, that's a good sign for us here in Washington, D.C., that our relationship remains to be pretty strong. And in fact, President Trump was very clear, as you saw in the Oval Office, that we are free to do it. In other words, he's not trying to tell us you choose between us and China. We are, in fact, an independent country, as some people may think that we're just sticking one way or the other. But we do have we have a mutual defense treaty with the United States. It will remain so, and and at the same time, economic ties with the United States, whether the tariff or not, it's still strong in our view. But we will continue to reach out to other countries, including China.
All right, sir, we really appreciate your time. Many thanks for joining us. That was the Philippine ambassador to the U.S., Jose Manuel Romualdez.